Hello everyone, welcome to Game Junk Prototype episode 100. Recording on Sunday, April 3rd, 2022. My name is Frank.
And my name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
And on a very special episode of Game Junk Prototype, we will be doing our top 100 games of all time. Now, that might sound a little bold, perhaps too bold, I agree. So we're going to do our respective top 33s, which adds up to 99, and then arrive on a consensus number one game of all time according to Game Junk. Are we all on board with this idea?
Yeah,
yes.
I mean,
everyone has their top 33 locked and loaded, ready to go.
I mean, I do.
Looking at Huck here.
It's locked in now. There may be some shuffle on the way, but it's good. I'm good. I'm happy with it, sort of.
All right. Well, how do people feel about their list before we get into it?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting process. Like, I feel like it wasn't that hard. Like, I kind of came up with like 33 pretty quickly, and it didn't change that much the more I thought about it. But the thing is, and maybe this is kind of what you were talking about before we started recording, Frank, but like, I'm a little self-conscious in terms of like blind spots, and just like, I feel like it's not a well-rounded list, and I don't know what that means. I don't know why that matters.
Well, but let's talk about that, because you know, this is not the best video games of all time. It's not the most influential. It's not you know, the most impactful, best. These are my favorite 33 games. Okay, they mean the most to me. They're the most impactful to me. I'm not saying they're the best games ever. I haven't played every game that's ever existed. Kind of like when we do our movie lists. These are the games that mean the most to me. The story of my video game life and my favorite games are told through these 33 games.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, like, I think I do take into consideration if a game, you know, had some kind of impact or was innovative in some way. That's just like me personally. I like that in a game too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that made me like that game. It's one of the reasons why I was drawn to it. But I mean, on my list, I don't think, I might be wrong, I don't have a single game that I have not beaten.
Okay. Yep. Same for me, which is surprising.
I dare say I don't have a single game that I haven't beaten at least twice.
Wow. Okay. That's
except for
kicking it up a notch.
There's one game I haven't beaten twice,
but
and
I mean,
it's a really big game.
Compared to, you know, having done this for Film Junk with movies a few times, I think games tend to skew more personal anyway, just because of the time investment, right? Like, you're not spending 30 hours playing a game that you absolutely hate just because you want to experience it and hope that maybe at some point it's going to click for you. Like, I feel like that's just not how games work. So I just think that's a natural how these lists are going to end up playing. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask you guys is, did you have any sort of policy or thoughts about sequels? Because sequels, I mean, with the movie lists, sequels are usually, a lot of movie sequels are not as good as the original. The original is usually on your list, and maybe you might like another sequel somewhere in there. But games, especially franchises that have been around for a long time, they evolve and change, and usually they are kind of building on themselves and improving along the way. And so I don't know, I tried not to load my list with sequels, but there's definitely like multiple occurrences of some of my favorite franchises on here.
I'm kind of the opposite. I like looked at the game typically the first time it came out. There are exceptions where the sequel, I felt, changed it so much that it made it a better game. But I, like movies, skew to the original. The sequels very rarely like mean that much to me. It's kind of refining the ideas I already liked. And I'm almost the exact opposite. Very few sequels, unless it's like a change towards, you know, going from a 2D game to a 3D game, or like a big leap in terms of what the game is about design-wise. So I think I have very few sequels on my list, and I would say why I think that one is better when I get to it.
So I have games on here I definitely have not beaten, but I think I took it a little less, maybe a little less personal than you guys. Like, if there are games that I have not beaten, for instance, Red Dead Redemption 2, but I could see the high quality nature of it, I would consider it for this list. And also, there are just gigantic games that I have played multiple times that I have not beaten, but love, and would go back to and still go back to, even though they're just so massive I will never consider even that. I don't feel like I need to beat them to really enjoy them and love them for what they are. I also, in terms of the sequels, I tried to kind of pick my favorite out of a franchise. So like, I didn't put, all the Uncharted's on here, even though I could probably argue that Uncharted 1 and 2 could be on this list. I tried to pick just one from a series and have it kind of represent that franchise or that series of games as a whole, with a couple exceptions.
I tried to do that, but there are definitely some exceptions. So we'll see how that goes.
We shall. So
yeah, and I mean, again, because these are maybe a little bit more personal, I think, it's interesting. Like, I was looking at other best games of all time lists out there, and there's not a lot of personal ones. Maybe I don't know where to look for those, but there's just a lot of IGN's combined list or Metacritic's overall all-time list. But I want to see a specific critic or a specific developer, what are their all-time favorite games, and I just can't find it. They're not out there. So
that is true. That was hard to find. It was all outlets. Yeah. I guess if you search on YouTube, you could find YouTube guys doing their top games. But I also found, when I was looking at top lists, you could almost tell the era that the person making the list sort of came into their own in games. I feel like my list might skew heavier Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, but then online there was a lot that skewed Game Boy, and then others that skewed PlayStation era. It was strange. There was definitely kind of when you hit your stride in gaming, you have a lot of good memories from that time, and I think that skews people's lists sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I think if you look at the IGN lists and stuff like that, they update those over time, and I think they change quite a bit. Especially compared to something like movies, you look at the AFI lists or the Sight and Sound lists or whatever they are out there. A lot of those don't change that much. They might come back to it every 5 years or 10 years, and a couple movies shift around, but they're kind of these are the classics, and they kind of stick around as far as movies go, and it's hard for new stuff to sneak in there. But games, because of the fact that the technology is improving and stuff, I feel there's a tendency to be the newest is the best. But I mean, is it? I don't know. I guess that's...
I mean, there's definitely recency bias in my list, but I've skewed to a little more classic when possible. I've tried to not have as much recency bias as possible, but it definitely plays a role. And not just in a recency bias in terms of technology, but just, I've replayed old games I've liked and still like them, and then I've played other games and didn't like them, and maybe they're not on the list as a result. Or with a very recent sequel, it may have affected my feelings about the original game in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's I mean, this list, it really, I could change the order any day. It would have been completely different 2 months ago. It's just a fun thing to do, to kind of capture our favorite games.
I was actually really surprised with mine how many what games I would consider more recent were on my list. I actually expected that a lot of the newer stuff would just not be on it, because I didn't necessarily have the nostalgia for it as I do with the older stuff. But a lot of it stuck around and still up there, so I was kind of surprised by that.
Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the lists. Who would like to go first? Huck, you go first.
Okay. I don't really want to. I'm still self-conscious.
I guess we should say we might be a little more brief about this than, you know, we have been for our movie lists and stuff like that, just because this episode cannot take 4 hours. This is, you know, we're trying to keep in the style of Game Junk Prototype, which is generally shorter episodes. So we might blast through these lists a bit.
Okay, my number 3 is a Super Nintendo game by the name of Ogre Battle. It is
33, right?
33.
What did I say?
I know we're going to be brief, but not that.
What did I say? Number 3? Oh, 33. Sorry. 33. Ogre Battle for the Super Nintendo. I really like the battle system. It was new, and I don't think many games have done it before. It's kind of based on a strategy setting rather than picking individual characters to attack. There's a big high-level world that you kind of walk through, and I've never beaten this game. This is one of the games I've never beaten. I've gotten close, but it is just so massive, and so like there's so much like politicking and all this stuff. I really like the story. I like how you recruit characters. I just really enjoy this game. 33.
Okay, I'll go next. My number 33 is Peggle. My opinion, one of the greatest casual games ever created, and one of the most addictive games ever created. I mean, I'm surprised. I don't understand why the franchise kind of seemed to die after 2.
And one of the most polished games ever, I might add.
Sure, yeah.
Like the near misses, everything about it. Like, it is a truly triumphant game.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, Peggle 2, I think, was the last one. Maybe they had an iOS kind of like a monetized version at some point, but yeah, I don't know what happened to Peggle, but it's great.
We need another Peggle. Agreed. My first entry is probably not the most controversial, but it's the most personally controversial, and it is Sonic the Hedgehog for Sega Genesis. One of the most overrated franchises of all time. I just made this change now. And the reason I made the change, I got rid of like 2 very similar games, and I put this on because I said, this is the story of my life in games. And I literally could not tell the story of my life in games without Sonic the Hedgehog. It was the first game I loved. I would play kind of endlessly, where a game meant something to me. I love the character. I love the artwork. It was at like peak video games as a kid. And I remember like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, my first video game magazine was revolving around that stuff. And like, it was a very important game. I don't think it's a great game, but I mean, it has to be on my list. If it wasn't for Sonic the Hedgehog, we might not be doing this podcast right now.
Wow, that was unexpected, but I accept your entry. My number 32, another Super Nintendo game, SimCity, which I find is probably similar to Frank's Sonic game. Not that great of a game, but there's something oddly addictive about this game. Now, I played a lot of the Super Nintendo version, which is probably the worst controls probably of any SimCity version. But I just find there is something just addictive about, you know, planning out your city, putting down your roads or rails, putting down your residential, commercial, industrial, watching those babies grow. I don't know. There's just something about it. Watch that population go up. Watch that guy with the crazy hair come in every once in a while and tell you you're doing something wrong or something good. I don't know. I really just like going back to this game every once in a while and just throwing down some squares.
I mean, it is a classic. I don't think that's debatable. But yeah, I'm curious. I mean, there have been some newer versions of it too. They've updated it over the years, I'm sure, but not that aware of where the franchise went. Okay, my number 32 is the Talos Principle. Just fantastic puzzle game with sort of a philosophical theme and just a cool atmosphere. I don't know, not too much else to say about it, but if you haven't played it, check it out.
Okay, I had to just edit my list. I realized the game went missing in the transfer to GG. So sorry, Sonic. I guess I couldn't get rid of you, so you got in barely. My number 32 is Wave Race 64.
I debated putting this on mine so badly.
Oh my god, I missed another game. I just realized it now.
Oh boy.
It's a disaster. Wave Race 64 is such a unique racing game, and the physics of the waves and the controls. I played it endlessly for Nintendo 64 while listening to music, and it still stands out as being a very unique game. The sequel I didn't love on the GameCube, and I still go back and when I would play it, I'm like, this game is still great. The idea of like going underwater and popping up, it was an awesome game. One of the best racing games ever, and certainly not talked about enough.
It's weird. I was so debating putting this on here, and I thought I just had complete nostalgia glasses for it, but I'm glad it's on your list to be represented. My number 31, going a little off the board, I think, a Commodore 64 game that I just rediscovered while looking for games and realized how much I miss this game. It's a game called Pit Stop 2. It's a racing game, and the neat thing about this game was that you're like an Indy car, and you would get damage and run out of fuel and you'd have to pit stop, but you actually controlled all the little dudes as you're doing the pit stop. So you had to take control of the guy doing the gas, pump up the gas. You had to get a guy to actually like take off all the tires and repair them and put them back on. And I believe if you let the gas guy go, he would just like keep pumping gas into your car, and if you kind of let it overspill, then that was no good, kind of thing. I just remember really like playing this game an absolute ton and loving it, loving everything about it. And when I started looking at some videos and some images of this game, just the nostalgia flooded back, and I threw it on the list.
Man, Huck's like bringing the deep cut retro games here. Like I'm embarrassed. I hardly have any retro games on my list.
I mean, I'm embarrassed. My list is in shambles right now. I had it in a document, and then I moved it to GG app, and I must have missed 2 games, and I'm in complete disarray.
Oh boy. Okay, my number 31 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. And I knew there was going to be a Tony Hawk game on this list, went back and forth on which one it would be. A lot of people seem to put 2 as the best. 2 I never got around to until later because I didn't have a PS1, I guess, at the time. And it didn't come out for N64 right away, or ever, I don't think. But I went with 3 because 3 to me is like they brought the revert in, and kind of that was they kind of finalized the main move set, I think. And
which game introduced the manual?
I think 2.
Okay,
I think pretty sure. But yeah, it just felt like, okay, this is peak Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and the levels are a bit bigger and more. There's more to do in it, and yeah. But I mean, obviously, haven't played these games in a while. Although they did have the 1 and 2 re-release a couple years back there, which was still fun.
My number 31, I think, is Mortal Kombat 2, one of the few sequels on my list, and I remember playing Mortal Kombat 2 endlessly. I loved Mortal Kombat, but Mortal Kombat 2 really, like, just the idea of friendships, babalities, all the different pits, like it just changed fighting games for me. I was never into Street Fighter. I thought the move inputs were too complicated. I preferred Mortal Kombat with the like very direct inputs. It was easy to do moves, and I also really enjoyed having a block button rather than holding back. That might be a controversial take, but I always found like just holding back to block to be really cheap. It was kind of boring to me. Definitely, like when I see the cover for Mortal Kombat 2, like it takes me back to pre-ordering that game, going to, I think it was Gametronics at the Pen. Was that what that place was called? Or the Niagara Square, and pre-ordering it and like needing to have Mortal Kombat 2. It was, and then eventually it kind of summarizes my relationship of Genesis and Super Nintendo, where I had it for Genesis and then eventually got a Super Nintendo, and it's like, yeah, duh, Super Nintendo is way better. Why was I ever not saying that? It's so much better.
My number 30, Star Fox 64.
This was a hard cut from my list. I wanted it on my list.
Yeah. I actually this was a late addition to my list, and I realized that all the like branching paths, all the little secrets in this game, just like the little quips between all your characters, and the gameplay is pretty solid as well in general. I like the bosses. And yeah, I feel like almost it shouldn't be on the list, but I just really love this game, and for some reason, it needs to be on there.
It was on my list. It was one of the few I eliminated the last couple days, only because the 3DS version came out like a remaster, and I barely played it. I'm like, anytime a remaster comes out for a game I love, I typically play it all the way through, and it's like this nostalgia hit. When it could be that it was on the 3DS, that could be a factor, but I expected to play that game beginning to end a bunch of times, and for whatever reason it didn't. That's the only reason I cut it. But it is a great game.
Okay, my number 30 is WarioWare Inc. Mega Party Games. So this is not the original one that came out on the Game Boy Advance. This is the one that came out on the GameCube, which is a lot of the same micro games, but made it into a party game, multiplayer party game, which I thought was fantastic and a lot of fun. And I mean, I like all the WarioWare games, just the creativity and the weirdness of all the little games that they come up with are great. But I think this one is the one that I have had the most fun with over the years.
Side note, I don't think I have a single portable game on my list.
I don't think I do either.
Not a portable gamer. My number 30 is Infamous Second Son. To me, one of the most underrated games of all time. And it's a manageable open world game. And I wanted a Sucker Punch game on the list as well. And I think this is my favorite game that they've ever made. And it just revolutionized the way I look at locomotion in games. The fact that there was 3 different locomotion modes that unlocked and got progressively better, and it was like hidden in the city, like the way you absorbed powers were revealed one by one, and I'm like, there's all these neon signs. Why is there neon signs everywhere? And then you get this neon power, which I love First Light as well, which focuses on that locomotion mode. And it's got great shooting mechanics, great platforming, 3D, open world locomotion. Very underrated game.
Kind of forgot about that one, to be honest with you, but it is good.
A lot of people do. That's why I had to put it on my list.
Yeah.
It was my game.
I was close to getting... I wanted a Sucker Punch on there too. I didn't make it, but I was leaning to more Ghost of Tsushima, but did not make it. My number 29, another retro nostalgia play, Police Quest 2.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love this game. This is like an irrational love for me. I don't know why this game is... I love the art style of this game. This was, I think, the last one where you actually typed in everything. So it can be frustrating, but I played the game so much, and I think it was probably the most lenient and did the best to actually like tell you what to do. But there's a lot of stuff in this game that you can miss if you don't pay close enough attention to everything that's going on. And I just really, really enjoy this game. This is probably my favorite Police Quest game out there. And I go back and play this game every once in a while just because I love it so much. And yeah, it's probably on no one else's list anywhere in the world, but it's kicking there. 29.
Okay. My number 29 is also a retro game. Going back to the NES, River City Ransom. You know, it's a solid brawler game, but for me, it was a game that added RPG elements, added a story that I was kind of into, like the idea of all these different bosses, and when you fight them, they tell you different things about what's going on in the story, and all the different, you know, move sets and you know, books that you can buy that give you new powers and abilities and stuff. For me, it was like a step beyond Double Dragon and kind of all these other brawler games, which are fun, but this just I don't know, I loved it.
All I can think about is what games are not on my list that I forgot and I'm going to be incredibly embarrassed about. This is a disaster. My number 29 is Portal, which is probably higher on both of your lists. I think Portal is one of the most brilliant games ever. I think it's close to perfect. It just doesn't mean that much to me. I've beaten it a few times. I absolutely respect its mechanics and the physics-based puzzles. I love that it's only one camera perspective the entire game. Like if you think about how games switch between, zoom in modes or like just one-off gameplay things that are a different camera perspective, you are locked into this perspective the entire game. And it's got almost the perfect level of puzzle solving, and like that aha moment that you talk about in puzzle games is just perfectly captured. If it was the best games of all time, it might be in my top 3. It might be number 1. But in terms of what it means to me, it's a great game, but lower on my list.
Okay, my number 28 is yet another retro-y game, TIE Fighter for the PC, I believe. And I had
limit this to pre-1995 or
yeah, I think it's around that. I had a flight stick. This game was so much fun to play with a flight stick, and I just remember when I first got this game, there was so many keyboard shortcuts you had to learn. But boy, once you memorized what every key on the keyboard did, you felt like you were flying that stupid TIE Fighter. And it was so much fun, and it did story progression and had the whole, like obviously the Star Wars theme in it as well. But then there was this whole other side that you had never really seen before with, what do the Imperial pilots do, and this mysterious order of the Emperor or whatever they had. And I just really liked everything they had to do with the primary objectives, secondary objectives, and then also hidden objectives. And I really liked the story of this game. I believe it was the first game that also introduced Admiral Thrawn, which is like a big character in the expanded Star Wars lore, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, anyways, love this game. It's great.
Nice. What number is it? 28?
28.
I believe.
My number 28 is Mass Effect 2. Which, I have a feeling there may be another Mass Effect game somewhere in somebody's list at some point. But I wasn't the biggest fan of the first one. I mean, I loved the look of the world and everything, and I liked the story, but I just I don't know, I guess it was too much of like a pure RPG for me. But as soon as they basically made it a shooter with RPG elements, I was in. Like it's, I just remember blowing through this game in probably like a week, which is pretty short for me. And yeah, like all the different characters that you kind of talk to and do side missions for throughout the game. I mean, there is definitely some great writing in here. So, yeah, I
feel it's weird that I don't have a Mass Effect game on my list, but I don't think I ever beat 3, didn't play Andromeda. I love 1 and 2, but I just had this feeling like Mass Effect is not going to be on this list. My number 28 is BioShock, which I need a new BioShock game. I love the first BioShock. I actually debated between this and Infinite. I really like Infinite, even though I don't think most people loved it. I even like 2. I think 2 is an underrated game that kind of got ignored at the time, and I just love the world, of course, and the shooter / kind of plasmid management. I think it does a really good job of deciding play styles, like meaningful choice when how you're going to play that game and how you approach combat. And it's a world that is awesome. Like the first time I saw Big Daddy, I lost my mind. Like it is really cool.
Yeah, that's one I never beat, the original BioShock, and that's definitely on my list of shame.
I've beaten the first BioShock 3 or 4 times, maybe at least.
Yeah,
it's a good game. Yeah,
I think I've beaten it one time. Very overrated game, in my opinion.
Huck doesn't like to backtrack.
I do not. My number 27, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I wanted a racing game on here. I feel, well, I got Pit Stop on there, but not the same. And I just feel like Mario Kart is just such an enjoyable experience. I probably could have put Mario Kart for Super Nintendo or even N64 on here as well. Both excellent versions of Mario Kart. But Mario Kart 8 Deluxe just seems to have so much to offer, so many tracks, so fluid. I mean, the Mario Kart formula hasn't really changed since Super Nintendo. And so I'm putting Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on here.
I gave it a lot of thought. Which Mario Kart am I going to put on this list? And it was not that one. It was very close.
I will have a different one on my list as well.
I think we're all going to have a different Mario Kart, which actually speaks volumes to Mario Kart.
Yeah. My number 27 is Red Dead Redemption, the first one. Spoiler, part 2 is not on my list. I haven't played it enough for me personally to put it on my list. But part 1, I actually just went back and beat it this week. I had never finished it. I was like, okay, I got to finish this game. And I was like over halfway through, so why not? And with the backwards compatibility, man, shout out to Microsoft. I mean, it was easy and smoother than it would have been otherwise. So, but yeah, I think great story in this game. I think, you know, going back to it now, obviously the visuals are a little bit dated. Some weird control things, which you know, kind of exist in part 2 as well. But I just, the atmosphere and the environment and the setting of this game is like kind of unparalleled in my opinion. Like I just remember absolutely feeling transported to the Wild West. And I don't know that there's any other game that has kind of given me that same feeling since.
Well, there haven't been many Wild West games, so the Wild.
Well, I just mean like
Wild West. It's not even the Wild West. It's the Wild West.
I just mean in terms of like bringing you to another time period and like, I don't know, just immersing you in that same way.
I hear you. It almost made my list. It was pretty close. Now I have to say I'm definitely thinking about, you know, what the number one consensus game is going to be, and after I say the next game, we'll have a new leader in the clubhouse. And it's Peggle. Who would have thought? It literally could be higher on my list. I love Peggle. I love Peggle 2. It's one of those games. I think we talked about it on some of our E3 stuff, but like most anticipated, like just waiting for that Peggle 3 drop, making it happen. Like it's amazing. It is such, it's original. It really was unlike anything else. And sound design, so good in that game. And, I think I've beaten both Peggles twice. Just need another one. Give it to me.
What about Peggle Knights? Did you beat that?
I did, I think. I did the DLC.
I don't think I ever played that one.
My number 26, extremely similar to Dwight's number 26. I also did not beat this game, but played it a lot this week, Red Dead Redemption 2. And I had, basically I could say the exact same thing Dwight was saying. Immersive world, so alive feeling, the world. I mean, you walk around and you see random people riding their horses. You have random people stopping you all over the place, asking you to do things. And just the amount of detail they put into the world and making it feel like a living, breathing place is incredible. It's the one game, I think, where while I'm playing, I don't even feel like I should be able to fast travel. And I only like realize it after when I see this icon on the map and I'm like, I'm just investigating it. Like, oh, what does this mean? It's like, oh, do you want to fast travel for a certain amount of money? And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I'll take the carriage. I didn't even think about that. I just thought I would ride my horse everywhere. But I played it quite a bit this week. I did not beat it, but definitely some clunky controls for this one as well. But I think just the... I also really wanted to put an open world game on my list, and I was going back and forth between this or an Assassin's Creed game to put on my list. I didn't really want to put Grand Theft Auto on my list, and I feel like this game does it better than Grand Theft Auto anyways in terms of immersion. And yeah, I think it holds up as our obvious number one consensus game from whatever year that was. Obviously, it's got to be on the list.
Yeah, I agree with all the things you guys are saying about that game. I just don't know if it's that much fun. Like a game being immersive and feeling alive is almost irrelevant to me. Now that's a personal thing, but like there's lots of games on this list that don't feel alive to me in any way. They're just really good games.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not a virtue of the game, but
I mean, having just finished part 1, I think I'm definitely going to give part 2 another go. I think part 1 is a little more streamlined. Like there's definitely still some clunky controls, but if you just sit there and go mission after mission after mission trying to go through the game, it's not that painful. I don't know if part 2 feels that way. I guess I'll see, but yeah, I mean, obviously it's a game that we all probably need to finish at some point. Okay, what are we on? Number 26. Okay, my number 26 is Halo 2. Went back and forth many times on which Halo game to include. Started with Halo Combat Evolved, and I was like, you know what? That library level, I don't know. There's definitely some parts of that game that dragged for me, even though it was the first and very memorable. And then, Halo 2 introduced sort of like online multiplayer, and that was big for me. And I still kind of, if you ask me what's the best Halo game, I'll probably say Halo Reach, but I don't know. I went with Halo 2, so go figure.
The guy went with Halo 2. What are you going to do? My number 26 is a Halo clone. A game that not that many people love, but I do. Blue haze in full effect. Resistance, Fall of Man, the first game in the series. Again, don't think it's the best necessarily. 2 is probably better, but I loved 1 when it came out, and again, this is part of my video game journey. Like, I was all in on PS3. I've talked about it a million times. Why is no one giving these games good reviews? Uncharted, Resistance, and I love Insomniac. And the alternate weapon fires and the creativity of the weapons in these games were just amazing. I played through this game so many times, and I want a remaster so bad. I love Resistance, and it's long overdue for a new iteration or a remaster. Give it to me.
Good choice. That just reminded me I don't have a Killzone game on my list, which is very surprising because I played the shit out of Killzone 2.
Start the show over.
Yeah, hang on. Got to reorder my list here. Got to force it in there. I was actually just looking. Can I force this in somewhere? And I don't think I can, unfortunately. But my number 25, Stardew Valley. I think this is a game that took all of the Harvest Moon farming mechanics, added to it, improved it, and just really enjoyable game. And I like playing it with the kids in co-op mode and stuff like that. And it's fun to play by yourself as well. The guy who makes it keeps adding stuff to it, and the game just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And yeah, I think he took the farming mechanics and just the dungeon aspects and the relationship stuff, and just really refined it and made it into a really, really great game.
Still have not played Stardew Valley. I mean, now that it's on Game Pass, I've installed it. Still haven't played it, but I guess I should do that one of these days.
Step 1 complete.
Yeah. Okay, my number 25 is God of War 2018. God of War, which I went back and forth on this a little bit too, because I like the first 2 for sure, original God of War games. I don't know if I finished part 3, and I don't think I ever played Ascension. But yeah, this one is great, and I kind of feel like it, certainly was a new kind of evolution of the game, and the combat mixed with the puzzle solving stuff. I thought it was a great balance of that. And yeah, I mean, it's a great game.
My number 25 is definitely, I'm the only person with this game on their list. And it's getting into clearly what is a sweet spot for me, which is Japanese fantasy, which is not something I would have thought about myself, but Onimusha Warlords. And I would say I don't have a Resident Evil game on my list, but I kind of do. Onimusha is, I mean, it's not shooting, but it's very similar to Resident Evil, and I just remember like being blown away by the basic combat, the absorb mechanic. I mean, it's dated now, but this game came out a few years ago, remaster. I platinumed it immediately. Absolutely loved revisiting that world, and it's another game where I've never beaten the second one or the third one. Don't care to. I love the first one. I think I beat it on PlayStation 2 many times, and then there was an upgraded version on Xbox. Bought that one. Beat that. Like, I love this game. I don't know why. It's an inexplicable passion. And I love the last boss in this game. So good.
What was the one with Jean Reno?
2.
2? Okay, that's the one I played.
No, maybe not. That's 3, I think.
3? That's the one I played. I like that game a lot too. Underrated series, I would say.
Yeah, I should go back and play 2 and 3. It's really embarrassing. There's a lot games in my top 10 have sequels that I've never beaten. It's embarrassing. But I'm all about the original. It's all these sequels, they're just revisions on the same idea. It's that the essence of the first that means so much to me.
My number 24, Phantasy Star number 4. I really like this game. I like how each character has their own little unique attacks. I like the story. I like, the kind of spacey aspect of it. And yeah, it's just a really, really enjoyable RPG from the Sega Genesis era that I love. What else can I say?
Guy loves it. What are you going to do?
What can you say?
Okay, my number 24.
Sean, let's put a cursor on that list.
My list is
highlight.
numbered. I did not put numbers.
So. Make a copy of it and then delete it as you go.
Add a space after.
That's too much work. The Last of Us Part 2, which fairly recent game, but definitely a very memorable game for me. And maybe it was a bit of a slog at certain points. I feel like it is a bit too long. But I also feel like that kind of ties in with, like, I don't know, like the characters are going through some shit. I was going through some shit. Like, I don't know, somehow that made it more memorable for me. So, and I do think it is a pretty amazing piece of storytelling in terms of video games. So, yeah.
Gotta love the rationalization. The game is better because it's worse, and it feeds into the themes of the game. Like, barf, Sean.
It is a technical marvel, though.
You picked the wrong one. It's okay. You had to pick one of them, but you picked.
You did pick the wrong one. You did.
I might have picked 2. We'll see.
Ooh. Note: I cut a Naughty Dog game last second, and I'm regretting it. I love Naughty Dog.
A lot of regrets on Frank's
Number 20. It's. I'm in shambles right now. Number 24. Viva Pinata.
Oh,
that was one I was missing. I'm like, how did that get missed? And it's like the only construction management simulator I've ever liked in my life, and I absolutely love it. The art style. I mean, the idea that the piñatas arrive in black and white form, and then when they enter your garden, they have this color that is amazing. Like, that small thing to me is fantastic. I'll never get over that. The design of the different piñatas, the novelty of the mating dance as a mini game.
Mating dance? Called the romance dance.
Oh, the romance dance? I don't think... It might be, to me, the most visually appealing game of all time. Like, it's hitting all my sweet spots. Animals, color, even the houses for each animal are amazing. I don't know. I absolutely love Viva Pinata. It might be too low.
That's a great choice.
I've only played it 1.5 times, but like the first time I played it a lot.
Definitely a little forgotten gem.
Mm-hmm. For sure. My number 23 is God of War 2018. So similar spot on my list to Sean, and I've been replaying it recently, and just the camera work and the relationship with the son. Now, I know Frank doesn't like this game because he went hardcore and did all the Valkyrie shit, and I think if you don't do that, if you just enjoy the game for what it is, for the exploration, for the puzzle finding, I think this is an incredible game.
For the record, that's not why I don't like it. I think the combat is overcomplicated. It does have one of the best moments in video game history. It is a great game, but the map is also terrible in the backtracking. But it's tough. It was tough for me to leave off my list. I'll say that. All right. Sorry, Sean, you're up.
Number 23, Ghost of Tsushima. Which I just realized now, I mean, it's back to back on my list with Last of Us Part 2. And, they were 1 and 2 for 2020 for me. And I had a hard time deciding between them then. And I guess I still kind of had a hard time here. But
in a year where it was very, is there a problem at Sony Studios? They're making games that are too good and too popular and too expensive and making too much money. What's the problem here?
Huge problems.
I mean, they're still making great games. We all know this. But yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I know some people kind of thought it was a bit of a, the open world stuff was a bit, I don't know, got repetitive and stuff. I did some of the side missions, but I didn't do 100% it. So I don't know if that helped for me. But I also, I just kind of recently started getting into open world games in the past 5 years or so, I would say. And so I'm just not maybe worn out on some of that stuff yet. And for me, I just thought the story was great. It's a beautiful looking game. There was enough exploration to kind of keep me happy on that side. And the combat is great as well. So yeah, number 23.
It's a very good game.
Good choice.
Mission design is a little lacking. Number 23 for me, Mega Man 2.
Oh yeah.
I
wanted to fit this in.
When we started this show, Mega Man 2 and Mega Man X were both on my list. Trying to decide between these games was extremely difficult. Mega Man 2, I think, is I ended up with that because it has the best music of any video game I've ever played. The music is phenomenal. I played the shit out of it when I was young. And Mega Man X was close because the robot enemies become animals. That is tough for me to overlook. It was really, it was hard for me to take off Mega Man X. And I know people talk about the tutorial level for Mega Man X, one of the best, adding the charge mechanic. But it's still Mega Man and Mega Man 2. It was the first Game Junk intro music was the Mega Man 2 menu music.
Good choice.
Historic.
So when are you going to quit your current job and just become a zookeeper?
Because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a zookeeper or a zoo veterinarian.
Never too late. Never too late. Never too late.
When I realized you have to do really weird, not weird, but tough to do stuff to animals.
Fair enough. Okay, my number 22, a game I will guarantee is on no one's list. Golden Sun for the Game Boy Advance. This game, I went back and forth between this game and Lufia 2. I feel like they're both pretty similar games. They both are RPGs, turn-based battles, but then they also have this overworld puzzle mechanic where you can use your spells in the overworld to solve puzzles. And I feel like not enough role-playing games have this sort of puzzle mechanic, and I think it really adds a lot to the variety to break up the constant grind of battles. And I think this game does it the best out of all of them, between Lufia 2 and it. And yeah, so I'm going to put this on the list. I love it. I think it's really well done. I've gone back and played this game quite a few times, and yeah, it's number 22. Also, the graphics for a Game Boy Advance game are quite good. Quite good. And it was by Camelot, the people who did Shining Force. So, excellent.
You're pushing it now. We get it. You're trying to rationalize Golden Sun. It's all right.
All right, number 22 for me. Probably on somebody else's list. Super Mario Odyssey, which I think I had it a little higher at some point. Mario is a tough one. Like, spoiler, there are other Mario games on my list, but Mario Odyssey, I think, just for me, it was kind of, again, a cool reinvention of the franchise. It was just one of those games that so many surprises around the corner, and like, all the mechanics they came up with and the exploration and all that stuff was kind of stuff I had never seen in a Mario game before. So
kind of like the mini 8-bit levels where you go into a wall and all that stuff. Like it's close to perfect. If it wasn't for the jump rope challenge, Moon, the second one.
Well, and I guess the one thing I'm a little bit torn on with this game is this idea that, and I think Nintendo has been doing this more recently, like you beat the game, like you roll credits pretty, like it's not that long of a game, but then there's tons of other stuff to do afterwards. And I'm like, but I don't feel compelled to do the rest of that stuff now, even though like I really like the game, but somehow it's like I feel like I've done everything I need to do. So
you know what might compel you to do that thing, Sean?
What's that?
Trophies or an equivalent. That's what it's all about, incentivizing doing everything in a game.
Maybe.
All right, my turn. Number 22. Guacamelee 1.
Whoa.
I've said many times, the best recent Metroidvania 2D. I think the simple directional throws in combat and the realms, it's like so effective. I've beaten this game multiple times. I love the second one. But there is this simplicity to the first one that I really love. And it's a fantastic game. And I love Metroid-likes. Did I say Metroidvania before?
Uh-oh.
You may have said
Uh-oh.
it.
That
It may
needs
have
to be
come out of your mouth.
from
I don't
the
know.
record. It's on my brain because there's a narrative later in the list. Guacamelee is a great Metroid-like. The greatest one that isn't a Metroid or a game that ripped off Metroid.
All right. Well, that narrowly missed my list, but it's a good choice.
Yeah, I was considering it as well, and then I was like, oh, am I just too close to this game? I don't know. But not that I really did anything in the design of that game. My number 21 is Cuphead, which is a incredible looking game. I don't think anyone can deny the graphic style of this game. But I also think that all of the little levels are
with the studio or something. What's going on here?
No comment.
Equilibrium.
I feel like the gameplay is really tight. All the moves, all the bosses are really well designed. The tells are good. I know the difficulty can be a little high for most people, it sounds like, but I was able to get through it after just kind of grinding away and just working at it, kind of like a Mega Man game, in the way that you kind of have to just memorize certain patterns and figure it out just through sheer repetition. Yeah, I don't know. I love this game. Great game.
We were doing best looking games of all time. It would probably be in the top 3.
Yeah, definitely feast for thine eyes. Has anybody checked out the Netflix animated series?
No.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Check it out.
John, we don't have time for interjections like that.
All right. My number 21, probably not on either of your lists, but it's an indie game called VVV. And, this came out, I guess, early 2010s, like kind of when the whole indie craze started happening with like Super Meat Boy. And
isn't this the same creator as Dicey Dungeons?
yes, it is.
And Terry Kavanagh.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like Braid, Super Meat Boy, Fez, all these kinds of games are coming out around that time. And I liked all those games, but then this one came out and I played it and I was like, something about it. I was like, I started playing it. I was like, I have to finish this game. And it is hard, but it had like, kind of like Super Meat Boy, quick checkpoints. So you can kind of just keep retrying stuff over and over again. And the main mechanic is just changing gravity basically from ceiling to floor. And something about that and the way that he works with just that main mechanic is pretty fantastic. Great soundtrack. Love this game.
My number 21 is Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. And there's just so much memorable stuff in this game. Like every boss fight feels so unique. The main mechanics, I'm not like in love with them, but I do like them a lot. They still have the vision cone, which I think getting rid of the vision cone is one of the worst things to happen to Metal Gear Solid. So it kind of plays like a game. And this was one of the first games that tried to be a movie, for better or for worse. And like it really was impactful in that sense to me. And I love the character design. All the bosses are so good. Like the main characters that basically end up being bosses are some of the best video game characters ever. Like Revolver Ocelot, Vulcan Raven, Sniper Wolf, like Psycho Mantis. I remember them all. Like how many games do I remember every boss fight from? I mean, it could be higher. Well, it's not fair. Sean remembers these because he worked on a remake of it. So, but I didn't. I only played that game, and I remember almost every moment of it. It's such a good game.
It's a good pick.
My number 20 is Halo 2. I also went back and forth on which Halo to put on here. I decided on Halo 2, mainly because they really, I feel, perfected the AI perception, how AI react to you, made it feel really alive. I'll say AI one more time.
It is AI. Come on.
But the
funny thing is, like, the consensus number one is going to be tough because we all picked different sequels for the biggest franchises or the different versions.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I just think Bungie is masters at first-person shooter games, and I think this was a good choice to sort of showcase that. I feel like I should play Destiny or Destiny 2, I guess now, because I bet that game is incredible. I know tons of people that are addicted to it, and I feel like this was kind of the original game that kind of kicked off their real mastery of the first-person shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a good one.
There needs to be a Halo roguelike. It would be amazing.
I will not support that. Number 20 for me, Uncharted 4. And maybe there's another Uncharted game. Maybe there's two more Uncharted games on my list. I don't know. But Uncharted 4 for me, I thought, again, maybe a little long. I feel like that's a problem with sort of this era of games right now. But I just thought, they took it to another level with the storytelling, the voice acting, the flashbacks and stuff, and how they worked all that together with the action set pieces. And I really liked the little epilogue thing they had at the end too. So, yeah, number 20 for me.
Great game. My number 20, pardon me, is Halo Combat Evolved, the first Halo. It definitely wasn't going to be Halo 2. It definitely wasn't going to be Halo 3. I debated Halo Reach and Halo Infinite to some degree because I still play the shit out of the multiplayer, but it's still Halo multiplayer, and I played the most of Halo Combat Evolved in university. We would play it all the time. I think that core idea behind what makes Halo great was in the first game. And I actually think story-wise, if it wasn't for the repetitive nature, which is kind of a limitation of the hardware at the time, like it feels kind of open world. It feels like a real place. And like discovering, like doing the Pillar of Autumn the first time and the Halo for the first time, like that's way more like impactful to me than just doing a bunch of missions later on. Like Halo 1 to me is like if you were going to remake Halo and make it as good as it can be, you'd pick the first one. It's a no-brainer.
Certainly the mythology was not insanely convoluted at that point, and it still felt fresh and kind of
there's a mystery. And like talking about worlds being busy, I actually think that's what makes Halo unique. It's kind of sparse, and it's got a vibe when you come across something. It's like this moment, and I love the sparseness of Halo 1.
It's a great game. My number 19 is Super Mario 64. And I definitely went back and forth between this game and Odyssey, but I landed on this because this was really the first game that mastered and kind of taught everyone how to do the 3D camera and have it kind of rotate around the character, and also a lot of camera tricks where they would just automatically move the camera and just move a character around in 3D space. You know, we didn't really have any good 3D games before Mario 64, and that's why this is on the list.
I picked one 3D Mario, and it was not Mario 64. I think like the last few levels are not that great.
They're not. They're shit.
Yeah, Mario 64 I did not play that much of, but
I played the new one in 3D All Stars, and I was kind of shocked at like how frustrating some of the end game stuff is, and how would you even know what to do in this stupid fucking level?
Okay, my number 19 is Portal. Not too much else to say. Agree with most of what Frank said. I mean, it's a pretty short game, but you know, close to being a perfect game in the sense of just one solid mechanic that they iterate on. There is a kind of a cool little story in there. And I mean, it's just interesting that it started out as a student project and then kind of became a legit thing. So
I didn't tell Huck before the show, but my prediction for our number one game was Portal in my head.
okay.
It will be on all three lists and relatively high. My number 19 is Geometry Wars Retro Evolved 2. I love these kind of twin stick shooters, and I discovered it all with Geometry Wars 1. Unfortunately, it's not a game. It's a mini game inside another game. And so this launched like day one with the 360. I took a week off and I played the shit out of this game, and I continued to play it and try to get high scores. Very rare that high score motivates me in a game. I think this might be the only, other than Pac-Man, which is not on my list, and I thought about putting it on my list. It's a game where like high scores mattered to me. And yeah, it's a great game. It's so simple. The physics in this 2D world are amazing with like the black holes and all the different shapes. So good. Love this game.
My number 18, speaking of simplicity, probably not on anyone's list, but it is Tetris. And I feel like this is a game that you could pick up at any time and play and still enjoy. And you hear those stupid Game Boy music tracks that you just still love to this day. And the game is just so simple, but so satisfying to play. And it just has like a little bit of a puzzle element with a little bit of, I guess, twitch or action, whatever you want to call having to move the blocks across. And I think it just is like a really, really good, really simple game.
Yeah, I thought about putting Tetris on my list. My deciding factor was, you know, everyone had Tetris. And for some reason, I never did. I played it at people's... I'm like, I don't need to own Tetris. It wasn't a game that I felt compelled.
You didn't have a Game Boy?
No.
Oh, okay.
Never had a Game Boy.
This guy doesn't play portable games.
And I love Tetris, but I don't know. It's not that important to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like an honorable mention for me. Like, I don't feel that personally attached to it, but it is like undisputably like a great game that's just like stood the test of time.
We might have to, if we need a topic for a future list, we should come up with a definitive, the best games of all time.
Could be interesting.
The 10 best games of all time as a group.
Yeah.
That would be a long show.
Well, we would have decided before the show.
Yeah, okay.
The arguing beforehand would take quite a while. Okay, my number 18 is Maniac Mansion. Going back with this one.
I had a feeling this was going to be on the list.
And, yeah, I mean, this one is like kind of stands for, like, I really liked a lot of the point and click adventure games. You know, Huck, you had Police Quest 2. Like, I liked a lot of the Sierra games as well. But for some reason, this one always stuck out to me. I have a memory of playing it on the Commodore 64 at a friend's house and just being like, man, like, how did, like, the story elements that were playing out and how into it I was, it was kind of blowing my mind at the time. And I still think it's pretty interesting and innovative, some of the stuff it does. Like, there's different characters that you can choose from, and depending on who you are playing with through one particular playthrough, characters react differently, different endings are possible, like because each kid that you can bring into the house has different abilities. It's a pretty cool game. But I mean, you know, Day of the Tentacle, the sequel, a lot of people prefer that, and that's also great. I like all the Monkey Island games. They also are not on my list, but they are great as well.
Okay, my number 18, and we're getting into it now. This, like, I'm looking at my top 18, and it's like, whew, I could make a case for any of these being number one, or they were number one at one point in my life. And my number 18 is Banjo-Kazooie for the Nintendo 64, which is probably my favorite 3D platformer of that era. And I love 3D platformers, as we'll see as we go up this list, or platformers in general. Big part of why I like games. And Banjo-Kazooie, to me, like, it's got humor. I love the character designs, enemies. All the levels are so unique. Like the one where there's 4 seasons, the game show. Like, everyone talks about Mario 64, and I think Banjo-Kazooie like has better gameplay. Obviously, there wouldn't be a Banjo-Kazooie without Mario 64, but I don't think Banjo-Kazooie gets enough love, and I think it's better than the sequel. I think all the shooting stuff and mini-game focus in the second one brings that game down. Banjo-Kazooie 1 rocks.
That is a good game. My number 17, so I put Portal 2, and I couldn't really remember the differences between Portal 1 and Portal 2. So
man. You got the goo.
The goo, okay.
Kinetic goo that switches up all the puzzles.
Right, okay. So, I mean, this...
I believe Sean didn't put Portal 2. It's got co-op.
So still be on my list.
So, I mean, I think I could go either way on Portal 1 or Portal 2. I just feel like they're both incredible. And, yeah, I mean, we kind of already talked about it.
Got to make the call. Is it Portal 1 or Portal 2?
Which one?
2 on the list.
Which one was the one with Gladys at the end? They both have it? I can't remember.
If you don't know, you got to remove it from your list.
I don't know. Whichever one had the moon at the end. Whichever one that one is. Portal 1? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't
either. I also don't remember.
Might flow on my list.
Okay,
That's embarrassing. That cannot be our number 1 if we don't even know how it ends. Sorry, I'm making that call right now.
Well, it ends with... You don't know, Frank? Like, it is GLaDOS in the first one.
It is in the first one, right? And isn't it some other weird computer in the second one? They do kind of get...
is it Winston or something like that? Or Wiley? Whitley? Something like that?
Wheatley. Yeah. The Stephen Merchant one.
Okay. Yeah, I would not know that at all. So...
Okay, my number 17, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And this was kind of a tricky one. Like, I actually had both the Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow in here. And I was like going back and forth. And like, because I didn't play Symphony of the Night when it originally came out. You know, I kind of went back to it years later on Xbox Arcade or however it came out. And I mean, Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow are fantastic. But I do have to kind of go back and give it to Symphony of the Night in terms of atmosphere and just like, I don't know, it feels
inverted castle, baby. What else do you have to say?
Yeah,
and that is not part of the core game. In my game, I just beat the shit out of whatever that guy's name was and end it. Well, roll credits.
That's what I was going to bring that up though. Is that is one thing going back to that game is I feel like there's certain things that I don't know how you could beat that game or know what to do without a guide or something. Like there's
definitely the clock room that it's like in the sunglasses and all that fucking crazy shit. Yeah. But who cares? I've
never done that.
Man? The game rocks.
It is great.
The music, it literally rocks. Oh, and it had the loading screen with the disc at the top. Like, how fucking good is that?
The voice acting, you gotta give it up for the voice acting.
Number 17. Literally my most played game on this list. The most hours I guarantee logged out of any game. Could be number 1 if I really wanted it to be.
I know what this is. Rock
Band 4. And The reason why it's so low is, there's Rock Band 1. 4 just made it better. I've got all this DLC. There's been so many games. And the only reason why it's not higher is Guitar Hero's guitar mechanics are better. Like, it's more satisfying to play guitar. The actual physical guitar toys for Guitar Hero were better constructed and more fun to use. So there's a world where there's a perfect version of this game that might be in my top 3 or number 1, but I play a lot of Rock Band. And really, Huck and I had a bit of a debate before the show. I mean, it basically just means I like music and I like singing and playing instruments. Like, if I could play a real instrument, I would. So it's tough to give all the credit to the game, but it's got to be on this list.
Yeah, it does. My number 16 is Rogue Legacy. Now, this is a game I played an absolute ton of and think it was the first game that really introduced me, I would say, to the rogue-like mechanics. And I think it did an incredible job. I think all of the enemies you come across their tells are very well designed. And I like the randomness of all the different characters and all the different character traits you get. And they're not frustrating, but they do add a little twist every time you play. And yeah, I really, really love this game.
Where did everybody fall on part 2, Rogue Legacy 2?
Still in early access, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is it?
I've bought it, but I haven't played it all. I'm waiting for the full game. Yeah,
I don't do early access. Sorry, not gonna happen.
I gotta support Teddy and.
Yeah, you could support it. I might have bought it too, but I'm not gonna play it.
But he needs your help, man. Okay, my number 16, Super Mario World, which, tough choice again, including which Mario games to include. For me, this was kind of like the peak of the 2D games. I remember loving Mario 3 and thinking, how can a Mario game get better than that? And then Super Mario World comes along, and it was just like, so many new mechanics added, like secrets. The look of the game was amazing.
In my mind, undeniable, it is the best 2D Mario game. A lot of people say Mario Brothers 3. You're wrong. Mario World is a better game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
agreed.
This is going to be the 2 games that are beside each other with intention. And number 16, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. A game that I love. It's the only From Software game on my list. I did have Elden Ring on, and I removed it just because I haven't beaten it yet. I may regret that it is not on my list in a few weeks' time. But
is Returnal on this list? Is the real question.
Sean, let's not skip narratives here. That's my story to tell. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice could be higher. It has the best combat mechanics of any action game I've played for the most part, or melee action. It's so responsive. So the last boss is kind of frustrating. There are some design flaws here and there that hold it back from being number 1 on my list, but I will remember it as the From Software game that I finally got and loved, and it's a great game, and it is challenging. I get it, but the world building, I appreciate From Software's world building, and this game kind of exemplifies it. It's an awesome game. And I really think Elden Ring will, if I did this list in next year, Elden Ring would be on the list.
Okay, my number 15, Final Fantasy VI. Now, this game I struggled with a bit because I actually don't really like the second half of the game that much. But I absolutely adore the first half, and I adore
he
all
adores it.
Adore. Je m'adore. And yeah, I think the sprite work's great. A lot of the hidden characters are really cool to find, and there's just a lot of little mechanics, one-off mechanics, like in typical Final Fantasy games, that are really enjoyable. One of the most memorable bosses, and yeah, I don't know, love it, j'adore.
Is Je m'adore I love myself?
Yes.
I didn't say Je m'adore.
You did the first time.
No, I didn't. I said j'adore.
J'adore.
Okay.
Either way. My number 15 is Half-Life. Half-Life 1. A lot of people got Half-Life 2 on their lists. Never beat Half-Life 2. But I think Half-Life 1 also deserves to be on any list like this. I mean, it's in terms of first-person shooters, I thought it was like a huge step forward in terms of storytelling. Very interesting. I was reading something about it the other day, and I didn't even realize. I mean, I guess it's obvious, but like no cutscenes, right? Like it's all the story is told around you as you're experiencing it, which I think is a huge part of the game. I also will kind of give it, a little bit of a nod just because of all the mods and stuff. I played a lot of Day of Defeat, Counter-Strike back in the day. So all that stuff definitely adds to the legacy of Half-Life.
I want to be clearly stating this. Mods should play no factor in this list. Absolutely zero.
Well, it just did.
My number 15 is... I have it higher than Sekiro for this list, Neo, because it got me into the Souls-like genre. It made me appreciate it. It was a little more action-focused, building on a lot of the Ninja Gaiden elements from Team Ninja, and I love the bosses in both of these games. They're like these weird fantasy Japanese creatures. Like, it's so cool. And I played this game, like, I think 145 hours. I've platinumed the original. I've platinumed the sequel. Clearly, something is working for me with this game. And I don't love the inventory management. That's why it's not higher. But it is a great game.
Interesting thing, and I don't know if like you guys have any of the actual Dark Souls games on your lists. I'm guessing not. But some of the, like, going back and looking at some of the other best of all time lists out there, like more recent ones, Dark Souls is like number 1 or top 5. And it's just like, I guess it's just the influence, right? Like at this point, like it's had such a huge impact that it's got to be on the list somewhere. But it's just weird because I think if you looked, right when this game came out or a couple years after, I don't think it would have been on any of those lists, but it has climbed its way up.
Well, these have to be personal lists, Sean. You can't account for influence.
Yeah. My number 14, the definitive Game Junk number 1, Binary Domain. I mean, you can't say anything more. This game is a perfect game. It is a masterpiece. This should be my number 1. Very torn about where it is on this list. Should be higher. The characters, you've got like a French robot. Like, what more do you need to say? How can you beat that? You like the disintegration of all the robot body parts, how that plays into the gameplay.
Like you shoot off the parts, right? Like that's a pretty cool system.
Yeah, you shoot out the parts, you can blow their legs off and they start crawling at you. Like,
sweet, dude.
It's incredible. All the characters have their own little different weapons that they use, and you can bring them along. You have different outcomes depending on who you bring. There's like a morality system or like a team building reputation meter that goes along with how you answer questions. Just a great game. It gets a little repetitive at the end. In the last level, feels like they kind of ran out of money a little bit, but great game, totally underrated. Equilibrium Systems will be bringing Binary Domain 2 to life one day. It will happen. And yeah, definitive number 1, guaranteed. We could just stop the show now.
I'm surprised it's not in the top 10, though.
I know, me too. It's tough.
Why are you so surprised?
I was trying to force feed it real bad.
All right, my number 14 is Metal Gear Solid, which I never played back in the day because I didn't have a PlayStation. But obviously some personal circumstances surrounding this. This was my first thing I did after being hired at Silicon Knights to work on Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Had to sit down and play the original. So shout out to Cappies. We played through it together, and I thought it absolutely lived up to its reputation. As Frank already said, so many memorable boss fights, so many cool little details in the game that maybe you don't even notice when you're playing through. Like one of the things I worked on in the Twin Snakes was the guard that patrols when you're in jail, and everybody just does the catch-up thing and moves on. But there's all these other things that can happen there that if you try different things, they've scripted it in. So lots of little details that it just feels like a game that they just were like, oh, this is a cool thing, I'll just add this, and just kept doing that. So and yeah, the cinematics and stuff, this was before it got out of hand, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't win like the definitive or consensus #1, it might win consensus coolest game. It sounds like it's definitely cool.
It's very cool.
Like a really cool game. My number 14 is a game that if we'd recorded this 3 months ago, it would have been my #1. I'm convinced, and it is Horizon Zero Dawn. Forbidden West has had that big of an impact on me in reevaluating this game.
Really? Wow.
Because everyone kind of says it's the same thing, and I don't know. It's really changed the way I think about this game, and specifically relating to climbing and some other things. But the achievement of getting these huge creatures that you can take down with weapons is still amazing. And the combat and the decision making within combat is still fantastic. I may have regrets about having it so low, but it's definitely a recency bias thing. And the world, if we talk about worlds that I enjoy, I think Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the best. I wouldn't say like I love the story all that much, but I do like the character of Aloy, and all the creature designs are amazing. So this one was tough to put so low, but got to work those narratives.
My number 13 is Dead Space. And I do not have a Resident Evil game on here either, but I feel like this is a good substitute. I've actually never beaten Resident Evil 4, which I think is a crime that I need to atone for one of these days. But Dead Space, I really love the... it's not environment, but like just the atmosphere. The atmosphere of the game, the ship is like a character in itself. I think they really did. Isn't it the Hiromoto or whatever it's called? Nakamoto?
Oh, yeah. I'm fine. I just don't like when environments are characters.
Oh, okay. Well, that's your choice. That's your hang-up.
You can like the blade weapon where you switch whether it's up or down. Like, that's huge. Like that, seriously, that is one of the best things ever.
Yeah, I think like the dismemberment thing was pretty unique to this game. I can't think of a game that did it beforehand, but they really did it well. I thought they did all of the the scares and just really making you terrified while you're playing this game. Just incredible job. And yeah,
if the remake came out, like this was almost on my list. It's a really good game, and the remake, I'm really looking forward to playing it again.
Just in terms of games that did dismemberment beforehand, Eternal Darkness.
Oh, I guess that's true.
Earlier.
Ouch. Never played it. Well, that's not true.
After Binary Domain.
Yeah, that's true.
Way better.
Okay, what is this? 13?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. If you would have asked me in the 2000s, I probably would have still been clinging to this idea that Ocarina of Time is the best Zelda game. If I'm being honest, there was some stuff in that game that just frustrated me, and it's still, great, but it's not, for me, A Link to the Past was where I really kind of fell in love with Zelda. Even though I played a bunch of them on the NES, some of those games are tough to actually get through. And this one, I mean, even just from the opening moments, I remember
the rain. How good is the rain at the beginning?
Just it was like, something about that. It was like, man, like this is like totally bringing me to a place that Zelda has not done before. And I think all the puzzles, the combat mechanics, and everything are just very polished and tight, and it's a great game.
I mean, the rain is great, no doubt about it, but the rain only lasts for a minute. And I actually went back and tried to replay Link to the Past in the summer, and I was loving it the first half, and then the second half it like really loses momentum. Like when the portal swapping starts happening and stuff like that. I mean, I do not like dimension switching mechanics for the most part. They're not fun to me. But yeah, no Zelda game on my list, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yikes. My number 13, really could be top 10 if I'm being honest, but I didn't want two of the same franchise in the top 10. Super Mario World. The game that when my friends got a Super Nintendo and had Super Mario World, I hated my life because I had a piece of shit Sega Genesis and not this game. And I would go to my friend's house and play Super Mario World as much as possible. It is so good. The reason why it's lower of the two Mario games on my list is I don't think the cape mechanic is all that great. The going back and forth and floating with the cape, not that awesome. Neither is the spin jump. I think it's kind of shit, but I love the world, the star world, all the hidden stuff, the key expanding and coming down, like the sound design with that, unbeatable. I love Super Mario World. I feel like the Super Mario thing is like when people say Super Mario 3, it's like they don't like Yoshi, which I kind of get, but it's not it's not like it's constant Yoshi in the game. Like I kind of dig Yoshi. It's a fun thing.
I think Yoshi's a cool addition.
Yeah.
My number 12.
Oh, sorry, how did I forget? The final boss. Bowser, Mode 7, one of the coolest bosses ever. Blew my mind.
There you go. My number 12 is Chrono Trigger, which I believe we did a group review of many moons ago. But this game, I think... This game keeps falling on my list as I'm making them. I usually just be obsessed with this game, but I realized that you can basically get through this game by just mashing attack the whole time, and you don't really need to use any of the other strategies except for one boss, the Dalton boss, and that's it. But I still love the characters. I love the storytelling. That trial scene and how everything relates in that trial, it was really incredible the first time you come across it, and even to this day, like trying to remember all the stuff to do to make sure you get out of that trial, and it's just a really well told game, and I love the sprite art and the pixel art, and I really like this game, but it's slowly falling down my list. Still high though. Still number 12.
Still up there.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 12. You guys were kind of discussing right when I joined the Zoom call here about sports games. Mm-hmm. Play a lot of sports games. I mean, there was definitely a stretch of time where that was almost all I was ever playing in terms of video games. This is the only one on my list, but I did put in NHL 94.
I almost put NHL 94.
Spent a lot of time playing this game. For me, it was, kind of adding like a lot of detail in terms of all the different players and their abilities and stuff like that. But the gameplay was still pretty straightforward, and, it wasn't like overly complicated. And so it was just, you could still kind of pick up and play. And, I mean, I'm not one of those guys who's like 94 is by far the best. Like I think 93 is good, 95 is good. Like they're all kind of comparable to me, but
I couldn't decide between like the best 3D one with the stick controls and 94, because playing 94 in the rewind, like I thought it was going to be more fun than it actually was, but it was like a game I played a shit ton of. Mm-hmm. But I think like the 3D versions using the right analog stick for the stick control are better games until they get kind of bogged down with simulation elements. I want something in between 94 and 09.
Yeah, that would be good.
My number 12 is God of War 2005, the original God of War. And I love all the God of War games. I do think there are flaws with the most recent one, as much as I love like how it looks and the world serpent and all that stuff. Like it's a great game, don't get me wrong, but God of War 1 when it came around, like it did things I hadn't really seen in games. It's got great puzzle solving mechanics. I just love its sense of scale. Like when you fight Ares at the end and you're huge, you walk on that sword and the camera pans out, and it just plays with scale in a way no game ever really had for me. And that's what the series continues to do. God of War 2, like God of War 3 might be the best original God of War game with all the weapon types and all that stuff, but it really is just building upon the God of War 1 stuff. And I obviously remember like pushing violence and storytelling at the time, and that's what God of War is still known for to this day. So I think it set the franchise up for what it was going to be, and I've beaten that game like probably 10 times. Like I love that game. I platinumed it on many versions, Vita, or maybe I didn't do the Vita, PS3, beat it a lot of times on PS2. It's a great game. It actually brought me back. Like I was done with my PS2. I had moved on to new consoles, and that game came out really late in the life cycle. And it made me like, I went back and like, wow, I didn't think you could make a good game on an old system when new systems were out. It was like when you get a new system, it's like, okay, old system is dead. It's garbage. Not like now where everything's backwards compatible. And that like made me get my PlayStation 2 out of the fucking trash to play it. It was so good.
Yeah. My number 11 is Rock Band, and mainly because I'm a drum guy, and I love playing the drums on this game. I don't know if Rock Band 2 is better. It probably is, but I'm putting Rock Band as a cohesive unit in this spot. And the same thing like Frank was saying, play a lot of it, play with friends, love the music in it, love all the instruments. Just great game.
For God of War, I think it was God of War 2 that was actually the very end of the PlayStation 2 life cycle.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I had moved on to GameCube at that point and was like, really wasn't playing with
Well, no wonder you went back.
Yeah. Sorry. Before people are all over me, I did confuse God of War 1 and God of War 2.
Speaking of GameCube, my number 11 is Metroid Prime, which I think, again, it still kind of is amazing to me that they managed to do Metroid in a first-person perspective and still kind of keep all the stuff that makes Metroid, like the exploration and all that stuff, having the morph ball work, like shifting from first-person perspective for that is great. Yeah. And yeah, I thought the atmosphere was still there. I love the score for the game. Yeah, I mean, it's probably, at one point would have been in probably my top 3 games. I don't know why it's at number 11 now. I guess, I think going back to it, it's a little bit clunky. Final boss is definitely the worst. But
and finding all those statue things.
Yeah, I like that stuff. I mean, it's coming up on my list, spoiler, but its atmosphere is unparalleled. It's so good.
I was close to putting it on my list.
I've never beaten 2 or 3. Like, how weird is that? There's something... Yeah. It's crazy. Metroid Prime is close to perfect. But that's a game I have not replayed in a long time. And, like, the visor switching and other stuff, like, I'm curious how it would hold up.
Yep.
My number 11, the Mario Kart I selected for my list is Mario Kart 64, which to me is the reason why I picked it is because it has a skill-based mechanic. From this point on, it gets like a little too autopilot. You have auto steering. The Wii has like the motion control stuff, and the trails where you do the colored trails by going left and right to get extra boosts. That was a skill-based mechanic for the last time in Mario 64. Maybe it was there in Double Dash, but I didn't like Double Dash all that much. But Mario 64 played a lot of multiplayer, still had the battle mode. I think it was tough not to put Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I'm also curious of how much of that is like it's got all the old tracks. Like there's so many tracks that they've added to it. It's like I'm still kind of just loving old Mario Kart 64 tracks within that game. I think it's to me the best Mario Kart in terms of mechanics, and the tracks are really good too, and shortcuts. And no like silly, I don't think like blue shells were around yet, and other stuff that kind of started to detract from the balancing.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, you could do 4-player on Super Nintendo, but it was more cumbersome. But with the N64, you could do 4-player really easily, which was a huge feature.
It certainly was.
My number 10 is GoldenEye 007 for the N64. I probably like this game probably more than most people, but obviously the multiplayer is legendary. Now it's super clunky, so it's definitely not there because I still, would go back and play this game and love it. But I don't know how many countless hours I played multiplayer on this. I mean, we devised ways to, rig up a cardboard blocker on my TV so that you do no radar and could not see the other side of the screen, just so that you had no advantage against the other team you were playing against. And also, I mentioned on the show many times before, but just the fact that the different difficulty levels of this game unlocked additional goals for you to achieve. So it wasn't just all about making the enemies harder to kill. There was actually different things you had to do, and easy was literally like run from point A to point B and complete the level, whereas hard was there's much more tasks involved, and it was really cool once you kind of saw that. You beat Agent or whatever the low level was, and then you go out to Secret Agent, and all of a sudden there's new things to do. And it just made the game so replayable once you figured that out, that then you wanted to do the next level and the next level up to see what else they added. And I just thought that was really a clever design thing they did that is not really talked about that much.
I considered it, but I mean, honestly, in terms of the single player, I really would just play the first mission over and over again. Like I couldn't even tell you what some of the later missions are in that game. Like
the library?
Multiplayer or the first mission on repeat.
Okay, my number 10 is Rock Band.
Is Rock Band the number one game of all time?
It might be our new front runner. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
But
now I'm regretting not putting Rock Band 1 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about putting the original Guitar Hero on my list too, but yeah,
Rock Band 4 though, like no fail mode is a big deal, and like the dropping in and out play and stuff like that as a party game, like it made a big difference.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with Rock Band. Like obviously having all the instruments, it made it more of a party game that everyone can participate in, and you guys were talking about like if you like this game, does that just mean you like music? But there's something about taking the act of playing a guitar and simplifying it down to something that people who don't play guitar can do. Like I still think it's pretty impressive that they kind of pulled that off with all these different instruments. And yeah, I don't know. For me, Rock Band was like the kind of the peak. I mean, keyboard was added later or whatever, but just having the drums was a big deal for sure.
All right. Well, if we're going to talk narratives and recency bias, we're about to hit the top 10. And number 10 is Returnal.
There we go.
One of the biggest, listing regrets of my life is not having this basically at number 1 of my games of the year last year. Ever since then, I've gotten I've gotten much better at the game. I get it now. It's tough because there is this barrier to entry. But now that I'm good at the game, it is so satisfying. I was like, I'll do a run of Returnal on Friday. I'm like, I was kind of bored. I was kind of sick of the games I was playing. I'm like, let's do a run. I literally played it like 10 hours straight. And then I started again on Saturday. And I played it again for I did a 6-hour run till 5 in the morning to beat the game in Act 3 and get the secret ending. And I did not want to stop playing. I could have played this game again all day. I'm at the point now where like there's all these weapons and unlocking alternate fires, and I think the core mechanics are amazing. I love roguelikes, and I wanted one of that genre on this game, and I think this is my favorite one by far. And the atmosphere is so impressive and graphically amazing. The effects. I love Housemarque. I thought about even putting Super Stardust on my list, and I opted for Geometry Wars 2 instead. But I've loved all their games. Like these very like shooter action-based games, they're so good at it, and Returnal kind of feels like the culmination of all those things. Effects are incredible. Use of the DualSense, the best that's ever been done. And the storytelling is cryptic but effective. It does what Control wanted to do, and it does it well. And I'm so embarrassed this wasn't on my top 10 list last year. It is such a good game.
Hey man, it happens.
It's fucking amazing. I could go play it right now and play till 6 in the morning. Like, no questions asked.
My number 9 is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I also love this game. I think the intro is incredible. I think this game still tried to hide some stuff from you and make it kind of like tricky to figure out, but I feel like it did it less heavy-handedly than the newer Zelda games, where you literally have like no idea where to go and you're just kind of like wandering around aimlessly until you happen to find something. Whereas I feel like this game did kind of lead you a little more along the way that you need to go. And I really like the gameplay of this game. Was this the last, other than like the Game Boy games, but was this the last 2D Zelda game?
They did sort of the sequel
like on consoles?
3DS, Link Between Worlds.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I know they did like Minish Cap and other.
Yeah, and they had
Spirit Tracks and
a bunch on portable systems.
Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they did any other on like larger consoles. But yeah, I really like it still. I kind of agree with what Frank was saying about how it kind of goes downhill in the last half or whatever. But I still love going back to this game and just playing that kind of like opening and, you know, find the dash routes and doing all that stuff. So it's on my list. Classic.
All right, my number 9. Time for my Mario Kart entry, and I went with the original Super Mario Kart.
I thought that's the way it would go.
I mean, I if I'm being honest, Mario Kart 64, I always thought the controls felt a bit floaty to me. Like something always felt off with Mario Kart 64.
It introduced the importance of jumping and sliding. Like in the first one, it's more about like braking, which isn't as much fun as just like using the jump slide and the power turn all the time.
Yeah, I think if anything, like I probably didn't give Mario Kart 64 enough of a chance, because I think it did add a lot of important stuff to the franchise. But for me, like just the amount of hours played of the original, and like, you know, even just the fact that it was 2 players usually, like I didn't have a multi-tap or anything like that. So, you know, the battle mode, as sort of bare bones as it was played so much. And yeah, I just think it's a great game. I don't even think Super Mario Kart was playable in 4 players. Oh, maybe not then. I don't know. I thought
yes,
it was, but
yeah, it was for sure. For sure, I did it. Oh yeah.
Okay, all right.
100%.
Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking of the main menu. Maybe those options only showed up if you had the...
I don't think you could do the race. Or could you do the race? But you could definitely do battle mode.
Okay, possible. I'm sure the commenters will let us know who's right on this one. I honestly don't know. I've never played it 4-player. My number 9, the first of 3 Naughty Dog games in my top 10, definitely my favorite developer of all time, is Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, which is in my opinion, one of the most underrated games of all time. It still holds up. I go back and play HD, like just up-resed versions, not even any changes to the art, and the art still holds up. With Super Mario Kart 2, Sean, like the art is timeless. Like that game still looks amazing. But Jak and Daxter, like it feels like a thing we say a lot now, like, oh, it's like a 3D animated movie. That game feels like that the entire time. I love all the different areas, the kind of integration. It even though it's not open world, it feels kind of open world, how all the things connect. It's not like an overworld map. It started to make it feel like a real place. And all the character designs are amazing. I just think the mechanics are solid too. Like it's a great platformer, like the jumping and the speed portals and the high jump portals and the camera movements for the time were incredible. It's such a good game.
Yeah, I'm just looking up some stuff here. It sounds like it isn't compatible with multi-tap. Which, I mean, because I had never heard of it until Huck was mentioning it here. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't even know that. But I don't think it is.
My memory is different.
Yeah, that's all right. I did the same thing with God of War 1 and 2, and I'm sure there's lots of inconsistencies with my timeline here as well. But Jak and Daxter, a lot of these games, it's like, I don't even know if it's the best one. It's just the one that I like the most. Jak and Daxter, the first one, is the best one, definitively. I've beaten it probably 10 times. It's a fucking amazing game.
Mm-hmm. My number 8, Batman Arkham Asylum, which is...
I picked the right one.
What did you think I was going to say? City?
No, I mean, like, that would have been the number one game.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. Yeah. I guess it depends on what Uncharted game we all have in the top 10.
Yeah.
I just love this game. I think the puzzles are great. I think the pacing is incredible. The bosses are good. The Riddler trophies, really great. All the gadgets, the combat. This is the first game to kind of do that, like counter combat or whatever you want to call it.
Rhythm combat almost.
Yeah, rhythm combat. Just incredible game. I played this game through probably 3-4 times, and it never gets stale, never feels stale. I love it. Great game.
Yeah, it's really good.
Oh, yeah. My number 8 is GoldenEye. Not too much else to add. I mean, it is here mostly for multiplayer, although I liked the single player as well. Probably, like, looking at my list, like, almost all of the older games I have are ones that you can go back to and play, and they still hold up, I think. This is maybe the one I'm not so sure. Like, just because it's painful to go back and play it. But it was the first-person shooter I really got into. And obviously, I think the fact that they have the simplified controls, that it's not like dual stick. I mean, they had to for the N64 controller at the time, but I think that helped ease me into first-person shooters, and I'm assuming other people as well.
Yeah, that one, I don't think it would hold up, but you'd have to kind of evaluate it on, take the game and use modern first-person controls, and I'm still not sure it would hold up, but the multiplayer was great. Number 8, Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
A Metroid-like.
A Metroid-like game infused with Castlevania. The biggest compliment I can pay to this game is I've played it 3 times, and every time I play it, I have to get 200.6% of the map. Like, I have to get... Now, there is an achievement for it, but that compulsion is real. And I think it's a fantastic game. The sound design, also great. The leveling up sound, I can picture in my mind right now. And with Zelda, the reason why Zelda's not on my list while we're talking about sound... I was really thinking, if you took the sound out of Zelda, I don't know if it's that good of a series. I think the sound is so good in Zelda, it elevates it to another level. Not that that's not an important part of games, but like I really feel like the sound is a huge part of why people love Zelda. The main theme, the chest sounds. If like
Well, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything that might be coming up, but I mean, Breath of the Wild, the score is super sparse, which I love.
Yeah, maybe. That's why it's not that good. Huck, you're up.
Oh, am I? Okay. Number 7, Mass Effect Uno, the best one by far. All these Mass Effect 2 people are wrong. Mass Effect 1 is the best. It is a real RPG. With action elements. You can upgrade stuff. The story actually is a story. It's not just go to a bunch of places and do a bunch of nothing. I love it. I love Mass Effect 1. I think it's the best. Characters, the writing, the Paragon, whatever you call it system, Paragon Renegade.
More intense RPG nature.
Love it. Love everything about it. It's the best. Not going to say anymore. Good.
Okay, my number 7 is The Last of Us, which didn't go back and finish until part 2 almost came out, but I'm glad I did because I think it has one of the best endings in a game ever. I think the story is great. I think the world is great. And, you know, like it was one of those things where I think some of the stealth stuff frustrated me. And I think ultimately, like, sometimes you don't have to kill everything, right? You just move past it. And I just learned to have more patience. And yeah, I ended up, I think definitely from a gameplay standpoint, I enjoy the first one more than the second one. But, you know, second one's great for other reasons, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I only picked one, but I could have put both, and I disagree with you, Sean. You do have to kill everything. That's part of games. You must kill everything. My number 7 is Metroid Prime. The one that I'm a little, you know, I haven't played it in a long time, but it was so good. It feels so cohesive. Like Sean said, taking a 2D game, turning it into 3D, music, atmosphere, the cliche Metroid Prime compliment is that every room truly feels unique at a time when, you know, games were pretty repetitive, and they managed to, like, the map itself is like a work of art in its own. The 3D map, which is finally being ripped off in stuff like Fallen Order. I really like the bosses. I think the kind of assisted shooting helps. Like, you'd think it might be a bad thing to have kind of assists and lock-on stuff, but it actually works really well in that game and allows you to do stuff like the grapple and other things. So, and the morph ball, like taking the morph ball, like Sean said, and putting it into 3D, and like the puzzles with that. And then the 2D perspective ones, like the bomb puzzles, I'm thinking of the influence of that in my own stuff I've worked on. And yeah, Metroid Prime, we need a completely remastered version. If you're not going to make Metroid Prime 4 other than a splash video or something like that, or Flash, like let's just redo Metroid Prime.
Well, we need a new HD trilogy without the Wii motion controls built in.
I would settle for just nice. Metroid Prime 1, like, perfected.
Okay, my number 6 is The Last of Us. You guys pretty much talked about it. It's an incredible game. Obviously, the polish level is pretty much unmatched. The story, incredible. The voice acting, the gameplay, the crafting, all incredible.
Crafting is so good.
Yeah. The level design is good. There's a few slower parts, but overall, I would say just an incredible, just a masterpiece of a game.
Yeah. My number 6.
Whoa.
Shit. Sorry, Sean.
It's getting late.
Let's keep it rolling. Okay, my number 6 is Resident Evil 4. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch, but for me, like, this was where I actually really got into Resident Evil. As much as I appreciated the first one, having played a bit of it, this was, to me, like, adding action to it, sort of the over-the-shoulder perspective, totally changed it. And I just thought there was a lot of interesting sort of dynamic stuff that happened during the game that, you know, felt like anything could happen at any time. Some pretty memorable boss fights. Yeah, for me, still one of the best horror games ever made.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to attack you on your list, but like you always talk about Resident Evil 4 and you love VR. You still haven't played Resident Evil 4 VR. I feel like that would be something you'd want to do. Just it's this weird thing. You say you love Resident Evil, you say you love VR, but you never play any of them.
I play them. I just don't replay games very often. I got a million other things.
Okay,
play, so.
All right. Sorry, I take it back. You love Resident Evil VR. Number 6. I picked the wrong one, it seems like. But I think it's the right one. Batman Arkham Knight, the third, or I guess fourth maybe in that series. I went through all 3 possibilities. Arkham Asylum, it's got that Metroid aspect. It's so tight. It's so compact. It like really solidified what the game is with the rhythm combat. Arkham City is one of my favorite open worlds of all time in the sense that it's so dense. Every square inch of the map matters. It's not big for the sake of being big. It's a great size. And it has like the flying around the city and grappling onto stuff, which are amazing locomotion mechanics that aren't really in the first one.
And isn't that the one that did they introduce the side stories of all the different characters that
so.
only unlock as you get certain progress? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but the third one has all those things, which I love, but I think people sleep on the Batmobile combat, which is like almost a third person shooter with like you're avoiding beams and hitting sweet spots. Like I love that combat. I can't believe it's not ripped off more. And I think it's an awesome element to add to that game, to take the rhythm combat and then have another combat mechanic in a vehicle that to me is just as satisfying. Like that's not easy to do. So I went with the third, and it has a moment when the city transforms with the poisonous gas. Like I remember that, and I played this game nonstop until I beat it. It's a really good game, and I love the franchise. And I really could have picked any of the 3. It's almost I really should move this up higher in my list. It's weird. I know we've talked about this before. Like this franchise gets slept on big time. Like it is really good.
You think it gets slept on? Like, I mean, I think it's just been a few years since one has come out, but I think pretty beloved, I think.
It design, it's super solid. All right.
Okay, my number 5 is a back-to-back Naughty Dog game. Uncharted 2 is going in this number 5 slot. I debated putting Uncharted 1 because, touching that submarine, you just can't beat it in the beginning.
You got it, bud.
But I decided to go with Uncharted 2. I feel like Uncharted 2 is the most probably well-rounded game in the series. I feel like Uncharted 3 and 4 get a little long just for the sake of being long. Yep. I think they definitely refine the mechanics and they improve everything, but I feel like Uncharted 2 is a greatly paced game. The ending kind of is not great, but still incredible. And finding all the treasures is a lot of fun. The relationship with your brother is really cool to go through. I think is this the one with the brother? Yeah. No. Which one am I thinking of? Oh, it's the other guy. The other sidekick guy. And you're introduced to not Elena, the other girl. You know the one I'm talking about. She always wears red. Anyways. That one. That character. But she's in Last Legacy and stuff. But yeah, I like the gunplay is awesome. I know people criticize it for everyone being bullet sponges and whatever, but I love this game. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is very good. We're getting into top 5 here. I'm just going to go on record and say any of these 5 games in my top 5 could switch positions at any moment of time. Just getting that out there. Number 5, Batman Arkham City.
Whoa.
We all had a different one.
Interesting.
I'm not as crazy about the Batmobile stuff. Like, it's cool. Like, they definitely worked with it and came up with some interesting ideas, but I don't know, it felt like we got to throw something new in, so let's throw this in. I don't think you need it. I think Arkham City moving to the open world was the big step for this franchise and really made it work for me.
Batman was already great, but what's the most rewarding or satisfying mechanic of all time? Shooting things. They added shooting things into that.
I guess that's true.
An aiming mechanic was added.
Yep. But
I don't know, that like rapid repel, fly up, and then glide mechanic, pretty good in City.
Yeah, it is. It's also good in the third one.
Moving around the city is amazing. So
we're going to have a couple of possible consensuses. I think it's actually going to come down to settling on one game, and I think I know what we're going to pick, but let's not skip ahead yet. My number 5, I might be the only person with this game on the list, although Sean might have it. It's become very overlooked. Gears of War 1.
I was really considering this game for a long time.
First of all, the co-op, no game has done a co-op campaign as good as Gears of War. I've played the co-op campaign multiple times. It has a reload mechanic that is great, reused in Returnal to some degree. I remember all the boss fights. The boss fights were super memorable. The story's memorable. The idea of an emergence hole for spawning enemies that you have to seal up, and like it's an incentive mechanic to throw grenades into it. The shooting itself felt great. The first time you ran, like the camera was different with running in this lumbering run where you hold A. It kind of started cover mechanics. I don't know. I think this game gets slept on big time. And even though I don't love all the sequels, Gears of War 1 is an amazing game. And I don't know. I don't know if it's one of those cases where there's so many of them now and it's kind of gotten repetitive, but the first one is one of the best games ever made.
It's interesting that you bring this up because I felt like it deserved a spot on my list. I didn't put it there, obviously, but the reason I didn't put it on, I was like, do I just have like hazy glasses on because of, this is the first kind of like, I think the big Unreal Engine 4 release, and it also had that huge commercial with that. Hated. Well, I mean. Yeah, Mad World. But, I mean, like, they basically just destroyed the marketing world with that commercial. And I was wondering if I was kind of just leaning on that nostalgia and the nostalgia of playing co-op of the game.
I didn't even mention the chainsaw gun, like ripping through someone with a chainsaw gun. Like, how good is that? The multiplayer wasn't even my favorite part, and it's good. Fuck, it's a good game.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's not on my list either. But you're right. Like
you were both regretting it, though. Sean especially, like a co-op game.
I mean, I'm not regretting it, but like I think you're right that there's been a bunch of them. I don't know that the series has evolved enough, and like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like
because it didn't need to. The first one was that good.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I only finished I think the first two, but yeah, the co-op is solid for sure.
Okay, number 4. I have a feeling you guys might be sleeping on this bad boy. The original Doom. Definitely
was considered
an absolute masterpiece of design, of technology. This kicked off first-person shooters. The OG. Well, I guess Wolfenstein was before this, but I mean,
Sean has, just for the record, Sean does have Doom on his list, if you were wondering.
To be determined. But it is just incredible. I mean, the different enemy types and how they work together and the sound effects and the horror aspect of the game. I think it's just a masterpiece. Incredible. Probably could be number 1.
It's certainly on a lot of lists if you start looking out there for best games of all time. It is not on mine. I don't know. I never got into Doom. Like I played.
I find the map design a little cryptic. Like it's a little too easy to get lost, and like it gets a little repetitive. Like
the one thing it did right is the speed. The speed
Agreed.
of running through, just going fast, shooting, dying. Like,
I mean, I know
it.
we've talked about it before, but Tim Rogers like pretty much knows what the best games are, and I think he said Doom might be the greatest one or something similar to that, and I could see a case for that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get that the technical, how groundbreaking it was and all that stuff, but yeah, it just never was never my thing.
Huck, you didn't say Carmack.
Carmack, legend. Legendary.
All right, my number 4 is Uncharted 2. I think the best of the series. I think you're right. Like, the other ones are either too long or too short. I think just the set pieces, the dialogue, the globe trotting, all that stuff. I love Uncharted. For me, this is the best one.
My number 4 is a Naughty Dog game as well, and it is The Last of Us, which I almost put number 1, but I played it like 4 or 5 times a couple summers ago. Like, it is so good. Like the agency and being able to decide how to approach situations is fantastic. The crafting system, the enemy design, like the clickers, all of these elements, like it really could be my number 1. It's just more of like what means more to me at this point, like which games I'm more fond of. But all the stuff people have said, I think it might be our consensus number 1 when we break it down at the end of this. Just putting that out there.
Could be.
My number 3.
Sorry, I didn't say the music, and I didn't say moments. The giraffe moment. Like, there's stuff I'll remember forever in video games from this game that actually mattered. It wasn't like just rolling my eyes or waiting to, like, wishing I could press skip if I didn't have, like, some weird compulsive thing where I had to watch every minute of every cinematic, even though I don't want to.
Even the first opening scene is just incredible.
Yeah,
in that game. My number 3 is maybe on Frank's list. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Wow.
Sliding into that number 3 spot. Oh yeah.
There's a late cut from my list.
You cut it. Oh no. I just feel like the graphics in this game are incredible. The way they took the Final Fantasy VII original story and put a twist on it and added all these details.
Blew it open, like expand.
Yeah, like really, and just how they changed the gameplay, completely turned it on his head, but still made it true to the original. Just really fun. The gameplay is really, really fun to play, and they really kept the heart and soul of what Final Fantasy VII was, and they just took it and they remade it in a true sense, like of a masterpiece. And all the characters are still there. You're worried, are they going to screw it up with the voice acting? And I'd say they nailed the voice acting across the board for everybody. And yeah, just a really incredible game, and definitely I would say eclipses the original. And I can't wait for the next iteration to come out to see what
an update on that. Like, what's going on? It's been
I don't know, but I don't care. I will wait forever.
But then you get into weird things where it's like one's on one generation and the next, and it's like now it's like
that's already happened. It's already happened.
I don't like it. It gives me anxiety.
They'll release the complete package on one
but it
platform.
won't look consistent.
Okay, my number 3 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Had to get it in there. For me, after years of bouncing off of newer Zelda games, this one welcomed me back, and actually kind of got me into open world games. Up until this point, I found them stressful. I found them overwhelming. This one was just kind of like, go where you want, do what you want to do, and
lose all your weapons in the process.
Just make sure you're walking there and don't climb anything. You lose your horse.
I mean, the climbing mechanic in this game, I think, is amazing. Like the fact that you can basically climb anything. And
I agree.
Like it just feels like you can go anywhere, do anything.
And every game is doing that now.
It's just kind of boring. Like the idea of the mechanic is amazing. I just think they could have made it more fun.
Well, that's my number 3.
Hey, a lot of people agree with you. Let's just say that. My number 3 is Donkey Kong Country for Super Nintendo. A game that I'm very fond of. Probably played it the most out of any platformer. When I think about it, I can think of the music for all the levels, the bonus levels, the hidden stuff, the sounds. I don't know, the visual ideas, like it looked amazing, but not just like the kind of pre-rendered characters, but like a level where it's like almost silhouettes with like a sunset background. Like it really changed visually what was going on. I mean, I obviously loved the animal creatures that you ride and stuff like that and all the mini games, but it was a game that kind of changed the way I looked at video games back when it came out. And it made me buy a Super Nintendo. Like, I'm like, I have to have this. No matter what I say or think, it's undeniable. I have to have a Super Nintendo to play Donkey Kong Country.
Never got into that game. I played it many times, but never really got into it.
I love it's the running of Mario, but like the cartwheel and the spins and just how you get into moving fast in the game is so good. Which is why you really want to like slow it down to like blow on things when you do a remake of it. Like, hey, let's take the speed and fun out of the game and let's like bring it to a screeching halt.
That sounds great. My number 2 is Super Metroid. Probably one of the best Metroid games out there, I would say. Metroid-like Metroid. And I think the mechanics they added in this game compared to the original Metroid, it still had the exploration of the original, but it built on all that stuff. The soundtrack is incredible. Just so many memorable moments and so many little things that seem to be nothing, like, but end up being little environmental storytelling. Like, I think this is one of the first games where I remember environmental storytelling being a thing, with like the space pirates being dead in that.
You learn the wall jump through the game and the crouch dash.
Like, the charge.
It's not even in the manual.
Yeah. Just an incredible game, and how it's designed, and how they lead you through the game so effortlessly that you don't really ever feel lost, I find. And all the hidden items that you can discover. I think it's just a great game.
Okay. My number 2 is Portal 2.
Portal 2?
Yeah. Which, I kind of was like going
right, Frank.
on this.
Goo gun.
And like the original Portal could definitely be higher on my list too. But like for me, it was like, how do you make a sequel to this game that seems like it's already done everything it needs to do and is an amazing game? And somehow they did. They added more mechanics. They added a story to it. The game has this sense of humor throughout it that I enjoy quite a bit. And of course, the co-op campaign, having all new puzzles and stuff to solve, which is amazing. So, I mean, this one to me is still up there as one of the best games of all time. And I don't know if they'll ever do a part 3, but if they do, I'll be there.
They will. My number 2 is Super Mario Odyssey. I think it's kind of the culmination of Mario and 3D platforming and like manageable open world exploration. It's super polished. Even something like the outfit switching, which I thought I would never care about, is kind of done perfectly in this game. All the worlds are so visually unique and look incredible, like culminating in the moon. Like when you go, like it's so like even with the technology lacking on Nintendo platforms, it's visually breathtaking. And it's not perfect. If it was perfect, it would be number one on my list. There are a few things that annoy me with the game, but I like the hat throwing. I think it's a good addition to Mario. Switching to these different like creatures that have different mechanics works really well. And the map is like so easy to use. It's so polished and visually appealing to me, while basically taking my favorite genre and bringing it into the current generation. So I don't know. And New Donk City and some of these creative levels where it's like, I never would have thought of taking Mario there, and it completely works. And the New Donk City like music section with the 2D level integration, I don't know. It's incredible. Easily could have been my number one. If it wasn't for the jump rope in New Donk City.
Disastrous mechanic. My number one, definitely not on anyone's list. Final Fantasy IV.
Final Fantasy IV.
I love this game. It's my favorite. It's been my favorite for years. I just love the story. I love how they integrate the story into gameplay. Sorry, and like backstory into gameplay. And they just really, I just love this game, how the leveling works, how the gameplay works, how characters, die and you don't get them back. And there's a lot of neat twists in the story that happen. I think the pacing's incredible. And yeah, love it. My favorite role-playing game. Number one.
And that was just released pretty recently on Steam, right? Any
the
recent
Pixel remaster, yeah. Working my way through it.
Is that playing a factor that you're just playing through it now?
No, because I'm also playing through all the other ones as well, kind of like nitpicking here and there. But it's been my number one, consensus number one for a long time, I would say.
Number one with a bullet, as I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, my number one is Huck's number two, Super Metroid, which, I was a little bit like, it's an older game. Like, is this, like, am I just being, like, nostalgia? Like, is that all this is? But, like, I gotta be honest, like, for me, like, obviously I love Metroid games. I love Metroid likes. And everything kind of comes back to this one, like, as being sort of, like, the ultimate example of this kind of game. And, I think it is the atmosphere, the visuals, all the different mechanics and weapons they added in this one are great. The story, the ending, all that stuff is cool. And it just, it's like you can go back and play it anytime and it still holds up. And, like I have a soft spot for Metroid 2 as well, which I've mentioned before, but that's on the Game Boy. It's a little bit rougher to go back to. And, obviously they've done sort of a remake of that one as well. Maybe they will do a remake of Super Metroid. I'm not sure, but...
Can I make my counter for why Metroid Prime is better?
Sure.
I think there's too much going on in like a 2D game for that controller. Like aiming in diagonals, which like these problems all reoccur in Dread. Like using grapple beams at angles and shooting things, like all of those problems are eliminated and simplified in 3D Metroid. And like mapping lots of things to a controller in a 2D game, like the 3D space kind of alleviates all those problems. And in the sense that, the game tells you when you're in a special morph ball section, right? Like you don't have to be able to go to it at any point at any time. It can kind of lead you down those paths. So I actually think the 3D nature of Metroid simplifies things to make it even more effective, rather than like using select to switch between rockets or missiles. I mean, just sucks. Like it's not fun. And using the left and right bumpers for aiming and doing stuff, it's cumbersome. All of that stuff was gone with Metroid Prime. I have no control. I had zero control issues, or like I never remember myself like struggling with the controls of Metroid Prime.
I mean, I think the shoulder buttons work fine. I think the select button thing is a fair point, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, it's not as bad as, you know, the obviously Game Boy and NES issues, but
I like being able to see around my character at all times in 2D, where in 3D you lose perspective behind you the whole time.
I mean, yeah, but you came from there. You remember what's behind you. like that's a
3D introduces its own problems too, but
aren't there flying enemies in Prime that fly around behind you? I'm pretty sure there are.
There might be. I can't remember if they show up on a map or not, but anyway, we'll hash this out potentially momentarily. My number one will be controversial. It is Uncharted Drake's Fortune, the first Uncharted game.
Of course.
Now, I know everyone says it's the worst Uncharted, and, you know, I could see a case. I thought about putting Uncharted 2 at the top of my list. I thought about putting The Last of Us at the top of my list because it kind of has a lot of the same mechanics, but adds to them in The Last of Us. But Uncharted Drake's Fortune changed the way I look at video games permanently. And it, like, to me, it's influenced every other game that's come since in terms of cinematics. Most importantly, number one, pacing. And I think they improved upon the pacing in Uncharted 2, specifically visual pacing. I felt that, like, the jet setter thing someone said, I thought was appropriate, that you're always moving to new places, which changes the visuals. But there's just something about Uncharted 1 to me that felt like a game changer. And Hawk already said, I saw that submarine section, and when you grab onto that, when you're all these custom animations, when you go through there, I'm like, this is the future of games. This is where we're going. This is why I play games. And Scott, I actually think the shooting mechanics are underrated in Uncharted. The single kill headshots, like, that's the best thing about it. Like, if you actually aim well and use skill, you will get a kill right away. It's about, like, being good at the game. I don't think the enemies are bullet sponges if you're good at the game. I like the length of Uncharted 1. I think they nailed it in terms of, I don't think the writing is necessarily as good, but the structure's better. This cutscenes are shorter. They get to the point more. It feels more like kind of a pulpy action thing. Like, it's not aware of what it's about to become. It's like, it's a fun thing, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. I think the subsequent Uncharted games might be guilty of taking themselves too seriously, including the beginning of Uncharted 2, which, like, really is on rails, and it's a spectacle, which people love, and it is impressive, but I don't know if it's that much fun. So, I mean, I love both of the first two. I like this third and fourth ones a lot. It's probably my favorite franchise, and Naughty Dog is certainly my favorite developer. But Uncharted 1, I've beaten it probably 12 times. I platinum it every time I get a new chance to. Like, it's just the most important game to me in terms of where I am with video games today. So I know a lot of people would say Uncharted 2 is better, and I would probably agree with them. I think it's paced a bit better, and it's refined everything in Uncharted 1 to the next level, but all of the ideas that are going to go on to make Naughty Dog great are in Uncharted 1, and I've played the fucking shit out of it too, so that helps. And I got the new collection of last year, and I platinumed it again. I'm like, I love Uncharted 1. I didn't go back and platinum Uncharted 2. But I always go back and platinum Uncharted 1. I like the length.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so now we have to come to a consensus. Game Junk, number one game of all time. And just based on, I mean, we went all over the place in terms of the versions of a franchise that we picked. I mean, I think Mario, surprisingly, is out of the running. I think we're kind of all over the place with Mario. I think Mario's not a factor. This is my list. Metroid Prime or Super Metroid. Probably Super Metroid. I think, let's just say Super Metroid. It's number 2 on both of your lists.
Number one.
Number 1 for Dwight.
Sorry, number 1. Portal. or Portal 2, but it would have to be Portal to me. Like,
Sure. That'd be fun.
Uncharted 2 as a possibility. The Last of Us as a possibility, and one of the Arkham games. Feel like they're all potential candidates for the best game of all time. The case I'm going to make is the case I almost made to myself for putting it number one on mine, is The Last of Us. Basically embodies all of the things of Uncharted, and for most people adds storytelling elements that are unrivaled. Sean has both games from The Last of Us on his list. We all have Uncharted and Last of Us super high on our lists, and it feels like that kind of summarizes all of those things. My case would be for The Last of Us, but I'm open to other things. Probably Metroid, Super Metroid, or either Uncharted 2 would probably make the most sense to me.
Okay, let me crunch some numbers though. Can we just say, so Super Metroid, where was that on your list, Frank?
It was not on my list.
Oh, it wasn't on your list at all. Okay.
Metroid Prime was number 7, but I mean that's a Metroid game that I thought was the best Metroid game by far.
And did you have Metroid Prime on your list, Huck, or no?
No, I did not.
Okay. And then Uncharted 2, you didn't have it on your list, right, Frank?
No, I had the first one at number 1. I could have made it number 2. Like it's more of a personal thing making the first one number 1.
And Huck, did you have?
I had Uncharted 2 at 5.
At 5. And then what about The Last of Us? Did you have that on your list, Huck?
I had it at 6.
You had it at 6. Frank, where did you have it?
4.
I mean, kind of is feeling to me, because that's the one that we all had on our list.
And it's like it kind of captures all the Uncharted and Naughty Dog stuff too. Like I mean, really, you probably could have put Last of Us 2 higher. It just probably felt weird. I could have included it. God of War stuff is influenced by The Last of Us. All of the games. Like I cut Tomb Raider 2013 off my list. I love that franchise because it's kind of Uncharted in a way. But I don't know.
I mean, we could also, in theory, include Rock Band.
It's still way lower though. Like we all had Last of Us in the top 10.
True.
Yeah, Last of Us was
top 5 almost.
Number 6, number 7, and number 7, I think. So.
No, I was number 4.
Or you're number 4. So number 6, number 7, number 4. So that's pretty strong right there.
But the only thing that's giving me pause is Super Metroid being number 1 and 2 on your list, and Metroid Prime being number 7 on mine.
And where did you have Uncharted, Dwight? Uncharted 2.
Number 4.
4. And I had it at 5, and Frank could have had it at 1.
So it's like,
I mean, Uncharted feels like the more quintessential kind of game junk, like we all agree on it, but The Last of Us is what we actually all put on our list pretty high. So
yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like Uncharted 2 is more of the game of game junk than Last of Us.
I feel stronger about Last of Us. Like I've played that game multiple times. I've only played Uncharted 2 twice, I think. Like you didn't know one of the I didn't even know the character's name either off the top of my head. So like Last of Us,
yeah, but other than Joel and Ellie, do you remember any of the characters of The Last of Us?
Not really, but what else do you need to know? Like
I don't know.
like that's the core relationship of the game. You got the sniper segment.
Yeah, but I mean, in Uncharted 2, oh God, I can't remember their name. Sully, Drake, and Elena, and like I mean, the other ones are kind of secondary characters.
Yeah, I get that, but I just think like The Last of Us it also encompasses Uncharted in some ways. It's like building on that idea. I don't know. It's if you were going to pick between Uncharted 1 and The Last of Us, it would be a little closer, like which one was more influential. But Uncharted 2 is like a step from Uncharted, where The Last of Us feels like it influenced every other like PlayStation AAA game. Like they were just kind of reusing those ideas.
Yeah, but I mean, you could also argue that The Last of Us used the storytelling techniques they began crafting in Uncharted.
I agree.
And refined them.
I agree. It's tough.
But I mean, like you're arguing against The Last of Us, but it's like number 6 on your list, right?
Well, I mean, it's like choosing number 1 and number 2. I mean, they're basically both amazing. Yeah. I'm not really like I'm just being devil's advocate, really.
At one point earlier today, I had put Last of Us number 1 on my list and I swapped it out later just because it's more of a thing. Like I've just played Uncharted so many times, Uncharted 1. How could that not be number 1? If it was like anything else, I probably would have put Last of Us number 1 if I had to pick between like, I don't know, if I was going to recommend a Naughty Dog game to anyone in the world, it would be The Last of Us 1.
See, if I had to recommend any, I would recommend Uncharted because it feels a little more accessible. But I think The Last of Us, from a storytelling standpoint and all that stuff, is the more impressive game.
Sounds like we're divided.
I mean, it is a really tough decision, and I love both games. I just, I'm looking at the raw data here, and I think The Last of Us has got to be it. I mean,
is it?
Well, wouldn't Metroid be higher by that metric?
But
1, 2, and 7?
Like all the other ones, like somebody had like a different entry on their list and didn't have it. Like Frank didn't have Super Metroid.
But to be fair, there's only 2 Last of Us to pick from, and I mean, Uncharted, there's really only 2 you're going to pick that are. Most people would pick 2 anyway. I'm just kind of a weird exception to that.
Yeah, you just...
And I was close to picking 1. I love 1 also, Uncharted 1. So, I mean, I picked 2 just because I feel like it is a step above. But...
Someone's beeping.
Someone is beeping.
It's me. All right, I feel like we can't decide.
A co number 1?
Maybe the listeners have
Naughty Dog? Just Naughty Dog in general?
I mean, I know what the listeners will pick.
Do you?
Breath of the Wild?
Last of Us. But yeah. I mean, I could have put Super Metroid instead of Metroid Prime, but to me, I think Prime is better. Like, Metroid's pretty influential. It's tough. Do we need to...
Well, I could be persuaded. I could be persuaded for The Last of Us. I mean, they're both incredible games.
Where was Uncharted for you, Sean? Uncharted 2?
Number 4.
It's got to be Uncharted. But I didn't have Uncharted 2.
Yeah, that's the only problem. Otherwise, it would definitely be.
I literally could have made it Uncharted 2. Like, it's...
All right, then it's Uncharted 2.
Uncharted 2.
Done.
There it is.
The best game ever made.
We did it. Well, that one didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to be...
Before, like, this is going to be embarrassing, but, like, doesn't Uncharted 2 have a subtitle that we're not saying? Like, doesn't that speak... Among Thieves?
Among Thieves.
Oh, is it? I thought that was part 3.
It's Among Thieves.
Thief's End?
Drake's Deception is part 3, yes.
Yeah, no one knew that one. So that's kind of pushing me to Last of Us.
Okay.
So did we decide?
I mean, I'm good with Uncharted.
Uncharted 1.
No. Uncharted 2.
Right. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. The best game of all time, consensus, according to Game Junk. So thanks for checking this out. It was a long one. Back to our long formats.
OG days.
Yep. So, I don't know, check us out on youtube.com/GameJunk. Sean is Film Junk on Twitter. Huck is Equilibrium Sys and My Angry Commute. And get on the Discord, too. The Discord on YouTube, it's popping lately.
A lot of people joining. A lot of people joining it.
You can let us know how wrong we are and what games we're missing and how embarrassed I'm going to be when we record next week that I missed certain games. But it's fun. I guess, 100 episodes. This was an experiment. We did it. We made it to 100. That's not bad.
Successful experiment, I would say.
Totally.
I think so, too. All right. Well, we'll see what happens next week. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.